Good evening, everyone, and thank you all so much for tuning in from all parts of the country. My name is Sarah Arison, and I'm the proud chair of the board of Young Arts. I'm joining you from New York City, the ancestral land of the Munsee Lenape, and we acknowledge the original elders, past, present, and future. I am thrilled to welcome you to the making of the Choreographers Scores 2020. Additionally, today marks both our annual Young Arts Awareness Day and the very first event of Young Arts' 40th anniversary season. My grandparents founded Young Arts in 1981 to identify the most accomplished young artists in the visual, literary, and performing arts. Over the last 40 years, we have identified more than 20,000 Young Arts Award winners, many of whom have had outstanding careers, and they've not only changed their field, but they have shifted how we see and process the world. In one of the most significant organizational shifts in our decades-long history, in 2018, Young Arts expanded its programming to further support Young Arts Award winners with creative and professional development opportunities throughout their entire careers, not just when they were starting out. And today, Young Arts provides financial microgrants, artistic residencies, skills building workshops, and fellowships to artists at every stage of their development. As we look ahead, artists continue to be the leaders guiding how we grow and collaborate to meet their needs and the needs of our artistic fields. Being an artist can be difficult, and Young Arts is dedicated to consistently providing support to help ensure that they can thrive. The pandemic has hit artists particularly hard, and we are grateful that we can collaborate on and support innovative ideas such as Choreographers Scores, conceived by CAP UCLA Executive and Artistic Director and Young Arts Trustee Kristy Edmunds, who found a way to commission performing artists during a time when venues across the world were dark. The Choreographers Scores 2020 presents a very rare collection of works on paper created by 26 US-based choreographers, each commissioned to contribute a handmade score, editioned as a fine art print by the Lapis Press. The resulting works reveal unique and intimate explorations of these artists' perspectives and choreographic ideas. Before we get started, just a quick reminder that we will have a short Q&A later, and we will invite you to post your questions in the chat. Now I would like to pass the mic and welcome Kristy Edmunds and Lauren Snelling, Young Arts Artistic Director, and Young Arts guest artists Ann Carlson and Rosie Herrera, as well as Young Arts Award winners Shamel Pitts and Caleb Teicher. Before they begin, I would like to congratulate and acknowledge Kristy Edmunds, my personal Yoda, dear friend of Young Arts, for her recent appointed as the new director of Mass MoCA. Congratulations, Kristy.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you. Oh, thank you so much. It's great to be here. Lauren, are you jumping on with me here? How is this going? Oh, there you are.
I'm here.
Hi.
I'm very blue. It's Young Arts Awareness Day, so I'm all blue. It's great. Thank you so much, Kristy. And thank you, Sarah, for such a wonderful introduction and to give a scope of this. Kristy, can you just give us an overview of this incredible project, and then we can dig in a little?
Yeah. Well, first, I'm so excited that some of the choreographers are here with you and us today. And I'm thrilled that there's, everybody in the community that's here for this evening. Look, it would be, it's hard to overemphasize the acute challenges that performers faced, and all artists across our cultural ecology throughout the US when the pandemic came in. We knew things were kind of fragile in a certain weird way beforehand, but that became like a cataclysm. And as we lost, our ticket revenues and the stages were closed, and all of the, these are the tools and the capacities of where performers are traditionally working. And so when you have all of your venues shuttered and, theaters are closing, rehearsal studios, all of those kinds of things, my whole being went first and foremost to dancers and choreographers. I knew that would be one of the hardest. We didn't know how long it would last, but I knew it would be one of the most challenging because the interdependent way that they make work, the way that you need to be in collaborative practice, even if you're working on a solo, you still have to have access to a place where you can move your body beyond your usually rather small apartment or living room. And so I quickly, recognizing it here at Center for the Art of Performance at UCLA, I felt like we needed to do something, and we needed to do something fast. And because I have a history also of working in printmaking, I started to realize that in my decades of working with choreographers over different moments in their creative evolution of an idea, or being in a studio or sitting down, and they'll often sketch something or draw something, or they're trying to convey something that is going to eventually take place on the stage. I realized that there was also in the visual arts such a huge practice of mark making that could possibly now serve the choreographers. And so, not to go too long onto it, but it was really finding different choreographers and inviting them across our shared histories with Young Arts, across the center's histories, and our practices around the US, to be able to really go, look, this is not an email invitation amidst the snowstorm of cancellations. It's not a lot of money, but it's something that you can probably manifest. And so 26 responded. There were some who we invited who were just like, I'm so overwhelmed here at my kitchen table that the idea that I could have anything to say right now is almost impossible. But many of them found a way to have it be a light of hand project in a system of visual art. And I also knew a lot of visual artists who wanted to help their friends and colleagues in the performance community. So we teamed up with the Lapis Press, and the idea was to create an edition of their choreographic ideas or notes or pockets of inspiration that could live in a visual system and be editioned, and then turn into a rather spectacular archive of the summer of 2020, when in this history of our nation and our world, our performers were really quite isolated.
Yeah. No, it's incredible. And I remember talking with you. This was sort of late April, early May, and Artist Relief had just launched, which became it's hugely significant initiative, raising over $20 million to be able to support artists. But this was a really innovative and creative way of asking artists to continue sharing, continue making at a time when they were, like you say, so sort of stuck, but also a really wonderful way to bring people together. So many of these choreographers know of one another, maybe know one another, but this is such a breadth of dance styles, of choreographic vocabularies. Can you talk a little bit about that, about just kind of casting a net and finding artists that you felt like would really be able to kind of focus on this process of creation? This is the creative development, but it's so early on. It's really about what is the story that's inside you in this moment.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to make sure that it was really inclusive. There's a lot of very young emerging choreographers and practitioners that are on a particular kind of cusp. There's artists and choreographers who I'd worked with for long periods and arcs of time that are, they have decades of practice underneath them. And there's, the cultural reality as well, how many different kinds of diverse representations, styles, genres. I just wanted it to be a kind of, how do we cast a net across community that are really the kind of authors of the dance that we have seen and learned and know, the dance that we, based on our cultural realities, may have access to in particular ways. The artists that we have yet to kind of see, all over in the same situation in terms of where am I going to make? And I thought, well, the kitchen table is at least, you don't have to build an entire infrastructure. So, and it was really that. And I felt as well that, many of them, and people like Ralph Lemon, for example, have a visual practice, or Lucinda Childs. And knowing that was also a piece of it. Or people like Wally Cardona, I knew that they had, from having worked with them for many, many years, that they had a kind of system that they did things, which were, it's like visual time to hold the notebook of one's ideas. Whereas others, it's more like rehearsal notes and journaling and prompts. People like Ronald K. Brown, he started as a journalist long ago. So the written word is extremely important to him. And so I also wanted everything to be in the hand of the choreographer, so that, because even in people's handwriting, there's an intimacy, there's a falling forward, there's movement. It can be its own dance if you look at it from that vantage point. So it was just, there was no wrong way, there was no right way. There was just the invitation to say, let me offer what's here. And when you see them, and I'm sure some of these choreographers can talk to it, they also carry a lot of emotional imprints for, I know Rosie's here and Shamel. For Ann, there's also kind of history inside of her print and score. For Caleb, it was a collaboration with another. So everybody approached it very differently, but when you look at them as a whole, which we'll have a chance to do, thanks to Young Arts in December as an exhibition, or for people who have the box sets, which is the complete edition of all 26 in a box set that have been going now into museums' permanent collections, they really recognize the visual acuity and the hand of it, along with the moment in time that gets held through this print.
Yeah. No, they are stunning, and to see them online is very different from seeing them in person. There's so much richness in the color and the texture that still comes through in the print. And that I'm eager to talk to these artists, but I want to ask you to say one more thing about that process for Young Arts. We were so honored to be able to support this project early on and to jump right in. I know Pomegranate Arts worked with you in gathering, receiving, and housing and getting things to you. But the process with Lapis Press and your role as a curator in this project cannot be understated. Being a curator for an exhibition is a very different thing from being a curator in this way. And the level of detail that you had to put yourself inside of, in the mind and the heart and the conversation of each of these choreographers, to try to see that live in a permanent context. Can you just talk about that process for you a little?
Sure. Well, I mean, for everybody, you can imagine all of a sudden we're starting to get FedEx envelopes, and sometimes it's somebody's entire notebook. Like they wrote an entire dance score, music notation mixed with movement and rhythm and pace. Some of them were, on scraps of paper. And then I had to figure out how to assemble them. Some of them were really like a journaling moment of the time and the feeling state that they were in, that if you were able to imagine a kind of prompt to the community of a dance world to find relief or gift or a poem, how do you share that? And that might evolve into a dance. Some of them, like Jawale from Urban Bushwomen, was a collaboration with many. It was a huge box full of cardboard and all of these things. So being first and foremost myself in my earlier life, a visual artist and doing a lot of printmaking, I knew we couldn't obviously make a print of an entire book. So it was how to create overlays, and the magic of what, truly like masterful printers are able to do with inks and color. And I would be able to look at some of the choreographers' lighting design, for example, from the history of their work, and realize that in a black and white world here, or with ink and pen, there might be something about lifting that into like a pink world. Or in the case of Camille Brown, it was on pink paper with very exacto Sharpie ink sketching of a system that would be a stage, like an architectural blueprint. So how to blow that up, how to match those colors. Elizabeth Streb used a highlighter pen, and there isn't an ink equivalent of a highlighter neon pen. So we had to invent with the inks and the prints how to preserve the integrity of what her drawing was, and give it a life as a print. And then some, were scans where we would fold an entire notebook up to a page, like Eiko Otake, and you can just feel the dimensionality that there's a book there, or Deborah Hay. So and then it would be back and forth with a lot of choreographers to see how they felt, and to see their scores turn into a visual language gave them like even more momentum and creativity. And many of them have gone on and made entire bodies of work now from these prints. So I don't know, that was probably too much detail, but it was a lot of early mornings with our masks on over at the Lapis Press, it's one of the great renowned print studios in the world. So these prints have a visual legacy in printmaking now that include choreographic voices. And I think it's a really important thing. And they were fantastic, as was Pomegranate Arts. Yeah.
It's such a pivotal moment, I feel like, for all of us who were partners in this with you, but then also all of these artists capturing this moment in time and allowing it to live on, to be able to tell that story together as a collection is extraordinary. And I'm so excited to see them in person and how they are in concert with one another in the exhibition, which will be in the YoungArts Gallery December 1st to the 17th, curated by Kristy Edmunds. And so many of these incredible artists who joined us tonight were past winners, guest artists, mentors involved. And so what I would love to do is introduce them, bring them in. If you all will turn on your cameras and microphones, and I will do some introductions, but also for those of you who are watching, we invite you to post questions. Use the chat feature, and then we will select a few of those as we go along to answer. So I'm gonna just go through and do some introductions here all at once, and then we'll chat. Shamel Pitts is a performance artist, choreographer, conceptual artist, dancer, spoken word artist, and teacher. After receiving his BFA in dance from the Juilliard School, he started his dance career in Mikhail Baryshnikov's Hell's Kitchen Dance and BJM Dance Montreal. He's the recipient of a 2018 Princess Grace Award in Choreography, a 2019 Niska Naifa Artist Fellowship Award and in Choreography, and a 2020 Jacobs Pillow Artist in Residence. He is the artistic director, founder of Tribe, a New York-based multidisciplinary arts collective, and is a 2003 Young Arts winner in dance. Rosie Herrera is a choreographer and artistic director of Rosie Herrera Dance Theater in Miami. Her work in film, theater, dance, and cabaret has resulted in numerous collaborations and commissions spanning from popular culture to the surreal. She is honored to have served as a Young Arts National Selection panelist for 5 years and to lend us her expertise in hip hop choreography and modern dance. Ann Carlson is an interdisciplinary artist whose work borrows from the disciplines of dance and performance, as well as visual, conceptual, and social art practices. Her work takes the form of solo performance, site-specific performance projects, ensemble dances, and performance video. She's the recipient of numerous awards and over 30 commissions for her artistic work, and has been a visiting faculty member at numerous universities, including Princeton University, Stanford, and Wesleyan, and is currently at UCLA's Department of World Arts, Culture, and Dance. And she has been a mentor artist working with Young Arts since December 2019. And Caleb Teicher is a professional dancer choreographer who lives in New York City, specializing primarily in tap dance and in other jazz dance forms. They are a full-time artist, performing, choreographing, and teaching. Caleb is a 2011 Young Arts winner in dance and collaborated with fellow 2011 Young Arts winner in film and U.S. Presidential Scholar in the Arts, Isabela dos Santos, on their print for the Choreographers Scores 2020. So welcome, everybody. It's amazing to have you here. So make sure your microphones are on.
Yeah. Are they coming onto the main screen now?
I think I can see.
Okay, good.
I can see.
Are we?
Oh.
You might
are
have
we
to
all-
hit gallery.
Oh, there we go. There we
Oh,
all
I
are.
see, I see. Oh, okay, so we can all
Thanks.
get on. There we go. Yay.
There we are.
You know,
Having a blast.
it's so beautiful to see all of you. Yeah, it's every time I see you since we've done this project and before in some cases or through this project, and I see you, it's the same feeling I get. It almost brings me to tears of when I opened your FedEx packages with your scores at the studio and felt, you know, that this aliveness coming off of those drawings and pages. And you know, Rosie, in your case, you know, fabric and words, and it's really, you know, the profound intelligence, care, aliveness, yearning, all of those things that were in this body of work. It's great. And it's so fantastic to see. We're still here.
Happy to be here.
Yeah.
So maybe each of you can just talk a little bit about what it was like for you to receive Kristy's email and this prompt or this request, or this invitation, and how you identified what you wanted to include in this and what was important to you in this moment.
Call him out, Lauren.
Shamel, I did your intro first, so.
All right. First off, it's great to be in virtual seat next to each of you, and Lauren and Kristy, thank you so much for your brilliance and innovation and championing artists for all of your lives. When this prompt came in last year, it was, at the beginning of the pandemic when everything had paused, and there was also an overwhelming overlap with the worldwide protests due to the murder of George Floyd. So that entire experience in time paralyzed me in many ways, because one, I had taken away from me, which was taken away from many, which is my life's work. I've lived and been fortunate enough to live as a creator, traveling the world, sharing the power of art with people all over. And not having that was kind of like, well, what do I do now? And then knowing that the continuum of police criminalizing, weaponizing, murdering Black bodies because of Black bodies also just left me even more in the dark. So, as Kristy mentioned earlier, there've been a lot of emails at the time that came in stating the cancellation of all things that were planned ahead. So when this email came in, I kind of thought, wait, what? What is this? What is this? And how brilliant and how beautifully sensitive and thoughtful and innovative, and also quite mysterious, because it was such an unusual prompt towards asking a choreographer to create a choreographic score. Journaling, writing has always been a part of my creative process and life process. But as I just mentioned, I had no creative energy during that time. But this prompt by Kristy really inspired me and got me curious again. And I think that's one of the biggest things that we need that fuels us as choreographers, curiosity. So, I responded. And, it was the beginning of a beautiful relationship with Kristy, and also a beginning of a beautiful relationship towards me getting back to a creative space. It also put me into this curiosity of the intersection between, solitude, creativity, solidarity. That was a big thing for me during that time. And when this prompt came in, I always write on Black paper with this sort of voluminous silver pen. Then I kind of was thinking again about this process of creation that is idea, body, material. So the prompt itself, although it was something else, it was very much connected to the creative process. And at the time I kept thinking about this word still. It kept coming up as an adjective. It's, immobility. As an adverb, it's nevertheless. So I think similar to what Kristy mentioned earlier, this beginning of the choreographic score project of my part inside of it was really sort of an offering towards our, the people and citizens of our times and artists of our times, and going towards this question and curiosity of how we as Black men and people of color especially embody multiplicity, and trying to create a space through words and then through a work that allows for men, especially to men of color, to share the many different sides of themselves. And this was, I think these are 2 pages, and now I'm on page about 63. So thank you for that, Kristy.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. And all of the works, I feel, have so much of the energy of where you were and what is happening for you. And I think when we look at these in person, we'll be able to see the shimmery silver pen in ways that is hard to pick up in this. And these also, Shamel, do you want to just quickly, does this section of the book still exist or no?
Well, these were the first 2 pages. I think that I started a new book. It's pretty large, and I think that I sent Kristy maybe 10 of the first.
Yeah,
I sent the first 10 pages, right, Kristy? And,
yeah, you did. It was, yeah, right around there. Yeah.
And together we chose these 2. And as I said, I continued through other residencies to have this book be a part of my creation process of this new duet called Touch of Red. And it became, my ritual sort of Bibles, book. And I would write in it every day as I started the day before getting into the studio. And at the end of last year, my arts collective tribe and I were at Jacob's Pillow doing a residency, preparing for this work, creating this work, writing in this book, being with artists for the first time again in space safely. And then it was also waking up during that time to the news of there being a fire at Doris Duke. And, this is an iconic theater space. It's a church. I heard Kristy say that at some point too. It's a sanctuary. And it was also my home. I mean, at that time I lived there and it was my lab. I was there all the time and my book was there during that time. So these are kind of the only 2 pages that are still, that survived that fire. And that was also, considering that crazy ass year, just another thing on top of when it rains and pours. But I think that's an understatement for 2020, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, indeed. And I thank you so much, Shamel, for sharing that. Rosie, I'd love to give you an opportunity to talk about your print and the story behind it and the elements involved.
Yeah, I would love to. I just also want to comment before I forget. I think Kristy touched on sort of the intimate nature of seeing someone's actual hand and their handwriting. And I think seeing your handwriting, Shamel, felt like such a download for me about like how you think and how things are organized. And I just really connected with that. I had an existential crisis when I was to do this work because I have a great deal of insecurity related to anything that is in 2D. My space of comfort is definitely like the ephemeral and fleeting. And so, I have a great deal of insecurity around sort of like putting the stake in the ground and being like, from this moment on, or this existed here. So of course, at the beginning, when I first received the prompt, I was like, well, now I'm a visual artist and I have to reinvent myself and figure out how to work in this new way. It's really ridiculous. But I was very, at that time, similar to what Shamel was touching on, just like really fragile in a space of like emotional fragility and kind of really embracing that, not in a place of prioritizing toughness. I mean, I couldn't at that time. And so I kept trying to find something tactile that could represent this sort of space of fragility, kind of locked into memory, nostalgia. My work over the past 6 years or so is interested in this deconstruction of religious iconography, themes of romance, love, faith. I mean, that's kind of all of my work ever, but I mean, that's sort of the grant language for like what I'm always interested in. And so after coming up with 1,000 versions of what I thought I could put forward, I kept coming back to, all right, what I really have, what is the most sincere expression of who I am as an artist is probably the thing that feels the most vulnerable, that feels the most uncomfortable. And so I had settled on using this fabric. This is my actual communion veil from when I was had a communion when I was, I think you're 7 or 8 when you have communion. And it was also my sister's communion veil and my older sister's communion veil as well. So it's been passed down through generations. I've always been sort of the historian of the family, keeping things. My mom's wedding dress is in like my props room, and I keep the veil. I have it in a Ziploc. I'm the one that like categorizes the pictures. And there's something about the fabric of this veil that feels so similar to the way that I was feeling at that time, and still kind of am feeling at that time too. This like fragile, nostalgic, hopeful too, because there's a sense of hope that's projected onto the ritual of communion. And when I was flipping through my journals, I have a big stack behind me of journals from each work. And even in the journals themselves reflect sort of the texture of the work, if it's leather, if it's sequins, if it's soft, if it's hard. And I came across these 2 prompts which were for 2 different dancers who also feel like sisters to me, 2 artists and collaborators that I've been working with for a long time. My best friend Leah, who's my first ever collaborator, and a new friend, Lauren, who I feel a deep sense of sisterhood with. And so there was this whole cyclical nature of there's 3 sisters and then 3 women. And one of the great gifts of this time has been of the pandemic times, the hard times, has been me reflecting on, or me sort of utilizing my resources more, instead of trying to reinvent the wheel, like touch base with, it's been a lot of women that, have been through similar situations and who are offering support with such a generosity. And so my space was really, my head and my heart was really with women and leaning on sort of the support of all these women in my community and in my family. And so these prompts felt connected, that they were such complete, they're not really related to each other specifically, but it was just like from beginning to end, a sort of complete script of how to create something. As you can see, the tasks are not very, they are ephemeral in the sense, there's a lot of space inside of them, but oftentimes the language for these tasks can take me, 3-6 years to develop. So some of these are the beginning sketches of ideas for what I would say in rehearsal. And some of these are like very well-oiled phrases that I've been playing with and thinking of for a long time. And they're all, truly rooted in the body and the sharingness between me and these 2 women who I love and adore, and who at that time my heart was with, wanting to see, missing, wanting to connect with, needing to like lean on in that sense. So it's a snapshot of that time. And it was really scary to like put my communion veil in a Ziploc and be like, lay these 2 pieces of paper on top of them. It's pretty terrifying.
Rosie, it's not only did I feel that vulnerability and its depth of care right away, but the people at the print studio at Lapis and the scanner, the guy who does, it's a really elaborate scanning process, and to scan fabric so that it comes up with full dimensionality was really important. And he literally took so much care with this that at a certain point I was like, dude, we've got to get the scans in here, because, and he had scanned it over and over, and then he was spending more time, and so all of the both tenderness, vulnerability, he literally, and we both, with the prompts and the score, it was like, how best to hold this if we could hold her. And I just wanted you to know that. Yeah.
And Thank you, scanning friend, artist, collaborator, for downloading that empathy for me. I'm grateful to them.
Mm.
I think another part of this, and is kind of, I always thought it was interesting. So the selection of the color blue, we had talked about what blue I wanted to use, and I was like Virgin Mary blue. You know, thinking that like everybody went to Catholic school and everybody knows what Virgin Mary blue is. And so I was like speaking to one of the printmakers, and he's like, well, I'm Jewish, so, you know, kind of break down for me, what is Virgin Mary blue?
Exactly.
So it was lovely to have to sort of think about, you know, about that. And you know, my mother's name is Maria. I always often think of her when I'm thinking of the Virgin Mary, because, you know, they look alike. And so it happens to be the color of my mother's eyes.
Oh,
Virgin Mary blue.
beautiful.
Okay.
Worked
There
out.
you go. Yeah.
Next time I'll just send a picture of her eyes and be like,
There we go.
Maria blue, you know? So those conversations were really lovely.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you, Rosie.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Yes.
sharing all of that.
Mm.
It brings this to life even before we're in the room with it and in the room with you in this virtual space. It's incredible. And Anne, I know there's some really wonderful history about the print that you created and how it became something new. Will you share with us?
Yes. I want to just, yeah, I want to go back a minute Rosie, I loved how you started saying about your hesitancy or resistance. I can't remember the word you just used about being a visual artist, making visual work, and how I maybe this isn't a dialogue between us right now, but I'm so curious about what transformed for you in terms of seeing that so personal object becoming two-dimensional, and the object itself having the experience of moving into a two-dimensionality. And I'm assuming it still exists as 3 dimensions. And, you know, I love that. I don't know. Can you say a tiny bit about that?
Yeah. Well, I think the word I used was like existential crisis and reluctance.
Yeah, that's it. That's what you said.
I would love to be able to say that I came, you know, I had some sort of academic revelation that made me realize what would be, but I really just prayed into the object and hoped that the object itself and its history and its memory would, you know, invoke that for those that were handling it and those that would see it. And so that was just like, you know, prayer and the ritual involved in that object. So no conclusion, just like faith that it would come through.
Nice. Did the object itself invite that prayer?
Yeah.
And I think that with the whole invitation, Kristy and Lauren, I'm struck by the notion of invitation in all this too. The invitation coming in this moment where, you know, in this moment where, oh, everything's stopped. Such a weird delight was the invitation, a sort of surprise, like a mini surprise, like somebody leaving a cupcake at your doorstep or something. I mean, it also pulled me into more out of, but into and with myself, my closeted drawing practice, like I'm which I have, but so I love also how you say I wanted to invite different choreographers to make a mark with their own hand, in their own hand. And I kept thinking about my own foot, like in that kind of frame, like, yes, my hand. And I love the experience of a pencil on paper. Just, you know, yeah. And the foot, our feet and that footprint. And to me, I'm also reminded of I don't even know if they do it anymore. When your baby's born, do they make a footprint out of ink? And I don't know, do they do it anymore? Who had a recent baby? Like I don't know. I don't
I
think
did, and they do.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Okay,
Yeah.
great. Yeah, because
And it's so cute and it's so sweet and it's so memorable.
yes, and it's such a thing, right? It becomes its own object. And that's the other thing about this invitation that I so appreciate. The invitation to towards memory, for me, towards memory and an arc over time. So right now, remembering the moment that these scores got made and what was happening. So the personal against this very public catastrophe, and the personal experience within this very public and constant death count, and the personal and the public in the context of objects and the object of paper itself. So part of my experience was that I had taken the opportunity to think I would get some of my work organized, and I was also at the same time drawing from Kristy's invitation and thinking about that. But so it felt like all of a sudden this piece of paper landed at my foot. That's why I think I was saying that thing to you about the object's presence, Rosie, because I felt like it was saying, I want to be that drawing, like from a work you made. Let me talk from the page now, from the work you made in 1986 with, I guess about, I don't know what it was, 20 women who I gathered as that I called them all friends. So it had to do also with, anyway, and I picked up the paper and I go, oh, I remember that work. Yes. And oh, look how, boy, I was very specific about their spatial lineup. And then I was, as I look at this now, I think about how a memory or a transcription of a spatial pattern, which is very common for us as movement makers, then becomes an expanded mark here that expands into different meanings, expands into a kind of maybe referencing for someone cave painting, an archaeological dig, Italian notation, has these radiant meanings then because of your initial invitation. So suddenly it's not at all what my personal experience with that work is per se, but it is this multidirectional expanded opportunity to be completely something else. And that was also, oh, yes, let's make something on paper that in a way dances or reminds me of a dance, that reminds me of collecting what I called at the time friends. And the personal aspect of it here is I wasn't out as a lesbian to myself at the time, but boy, did I collect a lot of female friends. So, and finally when I went, oh, so, I mean, that's embarrassing to say, but I came out kind of late. So it just is my life. So then it's a whole nother story. But I also celebrate the very personal and the private, and then the public, and then beyond the public, beyond the letting the work have its own life free from my mashugana. Also, I want to say about the footprint, I was reminded today that there was a footprint discovered in, I think, New Mexico just yesterday. It's been written up. I mean, I don't know when it was discovered. It was written up yesterday, made public, 21,000 years old. It's been dated. And so when I see a footprint, that happens to be mine, but I see a footprint and I think, oh, will our footprints be found in 21,000 years? And someone going, oh my God, look. And it's the same as a baby's footprint, really. oh my God, look, here they are. So I think of that. I also think of the felt sense of drawing and the felt sense of dancing and the felt sense of knowing and knowing.
Mm.
So thank you for the invitation. It's an honor to be amongst so many of just all of these artists and who I deeply am inspired by and respect. I'm really honored to be here and to have had this delightful cupcake in my email invitation. And I don't mean to trivialize it at all. It was a
No.
powerful invitation. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
That's beautiful, Anne. Thank you.
Oh, I got one more thing. I'm sorry. And that is that I was reminded, I know we got to go, but I was reminded of so 1986, I don't remember what, the AIDS crisis was just beginning. It was very rough. It was George Bush #1, I think. Anyway, and I asked them with deep, great irony at the time, these women, to learn the song. I love the United States of America. I love the way we all live without fear. And then there was complete silence for a long time. And I thought, oh, wow, 2020. Thank you.
Beautiful.
And wow. And you're dropping that on us. It's pretty huge. And the lightning storm just happened outside my window, so it's kind of intense. But your score always evokes a sense of music to me. So it's fascinating to me that you just sang. And in music and sound, I've got to ask Caleb, this print that Caleb created in collaboration with Isabela dos Santos, just you see it and immediately you have a visceral reaction. It's just joy. And I'm hopeful that Caleb, you'll be able to tell a little bit of the story of how this came to be.
Yeah. Hello. I had such fun making this. Like everyone else, major existential crisis, regardless of this project's existence. But this project was a good vessel to say, who am I? What kind of artist am I? What is my ethos, and how does it extend beyond my usual toolkit of choreography and composition and things that move and things that make sound. But I think better to say, I was thinking a lot about all artists are making work in context or in parameters. I was just reading David Byrne's book where he talks about every artist is creating in a vessel, in a frame, with logistical and financial and creative parameters. So for this, I thought, what are the parameters? Where will this go? Who will see it? And where will they be when they encounter it? Right now, we're seeing it over Zoom, but I imagined it in its home space in a gallery, or maybe in someone's home if they acquire it, or some sort of exhibition. So I imagined the person standing in front of it and trying to relate to it as a person, as a body. And so I wanted to give them something to do, something that would make them feel connected to what I feel most connected to, which is dancing and moving. It's hard to get people to move from no music, from no no communal space. But I thought maybe someone in an art gallery will stand in front of this, read the sentences, look at the footprints, and just give it a shot. I think historically, from like the early 1900s, popular dance pamphlets that sort of inspired the way this is laid out, but also, the Cupid Shuffle, the Madison, the Macarena. People like a little bit of instruction to get themselves moving. We love Zumba and the like TikTok dance tutorials for the young people. So I wanted to give people a place to go and a thing to go with. And I reached out to Isabela because I was thinking a lot about the way that we instruct people who are younger, who are kids, young adults, or the young adults inside of us who are less bashful about moving. Sometimes I think we get more bashful with time. And something about Isabela's handwriting and her way of visualizing things never seems to condescend. Her work is approachable, quote, family friendly, quote, but I never feel like she's mocking fun or mocking joy. It's genuine. So that's the first thing. I kind of imagine someone standing in front of this at an art gallery and maybe feeling comfortable enough to try moving, which that would be a success. The other thing I'd say is that it's heavy-handed allegory, which I love. My favorite book growing up was The Little Prince. And I love a book that is not shy about a coded or not coded moral or ethos or philosophical message. And this is definitely that. I mean, just to read what it says out loud, take it, clear your mind of the dance context of it and just read, make a move. Start with an idea that feels good to you. Share with someone else. Everything is better with friends. Let your idea grow, evolve, have a life of its own. And no matter what happens, it's your thing. And if it means something to you, it's a good move. And that was sort of something I had to say to myself. And I continue to say to myself because I have these little germs of ideas, and then they grow out of control in good ways. I say, wow, wouldn't it be fun to put together a big swing dance show someday? And then I find myself knee deep in Zoom calls and phone calls and emails and spreadsheets and budgets. And I think, where did this idea start? Where did it germinate from? And do I still feel connected to the beginning of the idea as it sort of grows out of my hands into the world? Is something that I play the note, but the echo of it and the effect of it is sort of out of my hands at a certain point. So I was doing my best to distill sort of guiding principles for me as a person, and me as a person is a dancer. So that's how I got here, and it was quite fun to make. I framed one for myself, and it hangs in my apartment, and it brings me quite a bit of joy. And I've seen a couple people walk by it and try to figure out what the heck that step is, and that always tickles me as well.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing visitors to the gallery and what they do in front of your print. I have a feeling we'll see a lot of movers. It's so beautiful and it's so fun and it makes you feel really good, and it's very relatable for all of us. All of you have made such incredible contributions to Young Arts. You have inspired so many of the artists who are coming through. Some of you have been artists who came through and are now giving back. And those of you coming toward the organization to provide inspiration and, like Kristy, this incredible opportunity for artists to come together in a time where we couldn't come together is really extraordinary. So thank you so very much. I think in the chat there is the link so that you who are watching can see all 26 of these prints. The team at Young Arts has done an incredible job. I have to give a huge shout out to my colleagues, particularly Jasmine, who put together this incredible site, youngarts.org/choreographers scores. And you'll be able to purchase. There are very limited few of these prints that you're able to purchase through that site in support of Young Arts mission. And if and when they run out, contact us. We will try to put you in contact with the artists and find a way for you to be able to bring these into your own home. And we just want to say thank you so very much. Olivia has joined.
Olivia has joined us.
Olivia, do you want to say hi?
We can't see her. We can't see you, Sarah.
Oh,
We can hear you.
they won't let me join. You can come sit on my lap, but they
Let
have.
Sarah join.
There we go.
There.
Here she is.
Hmm.
She has to be right in front of you because you have that fancy background on.
Yeah. You know, it's
Oh,
worth saying,
thank you.
oh, baby in the house. Hi, Olivia.
Olivia has discovered bathrobes.
Nice.
bathrobe.
You have a bathrobe, and it's so exciting.
So exciting.
I just want to say thank you again to Kristy, Lauren, Shamel, Rosie, Ann, and Caleb. You guys, you make this organization what it is today, and we're so grateful to you. If you're in Miami for Miami Art Week, please join us for the exhibition opening of Choreographers Scores 2020 on December 1st. And an important reminder, today is Young Arts Awareness Day. Olivia was wearing her t-shirt. My dog was unhappily wearing his t-shirt. It's a nationwide initiative to encourage emerging artists to pursue their dreams of becoming professionals in their fields. And so if you haven't already, share the opportunity to apply to the national competition with young artists that arts educators in your life. What are you doing, Bean? Using the tools available at youngarts.org/YAAD. We can wash your hands whenever you want. The link is in the chat. The deadline to apply is October 15th, 2021. So you have a little, we'll see them very soon. And finally, thank you to everybody who joined this evening. Your support means we can continue to fulfill our mission and provide artists with the opportunities they need throughout their careers. Thank you so much and have a good evening.